Chapter 78 The Empress Dowager's Sage. A trace of timidity flashed in the eyes of the eldest princess, and she said sorrowfully, "For years have passed, and the supervisory court actually hasn't relaxed yet, so I'm really afraid that I'll be investigated someday. I've heard that Lord Chen Pingping has gone home to his family and has been refusing to go back to the capital, and if he's really just willing to retire, that would be good." "Not necessarily." The Empress sneered. "Don't you forget that 4 years ago, it was Chen Pingping who entered the palace to talk to the Emperor for one night, only to have the Emperor withdraw his will to point out his relatives. A few days ago Chen Pingping returned to her hometown to save her family. Fan Jian took the opportunity to enter the palace, and only then did the Emperor again point Chener to Fan Xian, and explicitly said that in the future, you should no longer be in charge of the internal treasury. If Chen Pingping is now in Kyoto, I'm afraid that there are still variables in the marriage, so maybe it will be true that you have followed your wishes, or rather, with the intention of Lord Chancellor." The eldest princess covered her mouth with a smile and said, "The Empress said this, if this marriage doesn't work, you should also be happy. After all, the second prince will have one less doorway to fish for silver." The Empress smiled. "What do I have to be happy about? In fact, in the end, this is only 2 children to marry the matter, success or failure, and the relationship with the palace is not very. Mother also said, after the children's marriage I can worry about, this Fan family things I do not worry about." The eldest princess's face changed slightly, but still smiled and said, "Your Highness has a point, then I am a mother, there is even less to be anxious about, although that Fan Xian's origin is not very honorable, but these days it seems that there are a few talents, and then again, Chen's spirit seems to have picked up a little bit these days. Maybe it's really a good thing that the happy event will be near, bringing benefits. 2 of the most powerful women in the country of Qing, just like this sitting quietly against each other, drinking tea and gossiping. It seems that everything just now did not happen. 2 people who are not willing to loosen their heart defense, who are not willing to do that thing kill Fan Xian. The marriage naturally fell through. Fan family lack of successor. The second prince has no support. The prime minister rests on his laurels. The princess is still sickly and in charge of the inner treasury, providing an endless supply of silver to those in need. As long as one person dies, it seems that the dilemma surrounding the distribution of power in the palace will be solved. But on the contrary, no one is willing to make a move. After all, it is not 4 years ago. After all, Kyoto is not Tanyu. There are countless pairs of eyes here. Even if it is someone inside the palace, it is impossible to use assassination as a means of dealing with a minister's son again, especially at such a sensitive time, and after all, Lu will not step into the same shady ditch twice in his life. Gutter. In the Empress Dowager's chambers, the old lady who looked to be of advanced age and virtue hung down her white hair, felt the pair of steady hands behind her that were combing her hair, and said in a low voice, "Why would I give birth to such a stupid daughter?" The person behind her smiled and said, "But you still love the eldest princess the most, or else you wouldn't have let the Emperor make that kind of arrangement in the first place, and you wouldn't have helped Lord Chancellor do so many things secretly." The Empress Dowager sighed and said, "Lin Ruofu, this person, I really don't know if it's him who has negatively affected me there, or my son who has harmed him. By the way, you, an old dog with poisonous eyes, tell me why in the end the Emperor wants the Fan family's brat to marry Chener?" That person's voiced some hesitation. The princess has also reached the age of the marriage, and the body is really afraid of difficult to get better. Promise to the Fan family is appropriate, but the marriage is only the table. The key also lies in His Majesty's ambiguous oracle. Such a large amount of property, let a foreigner to manage. Could it be that His Majesty feels that the Empress and the Princess are too close to each other, and that she is too close to him? Feeling that the Empress is too close to the eldest princess and is really dissatisfied with the Crown Prince, so she stripped the eldest princess of her power and is ready to let the second. He suddenly realized that although he had served the Empress Dowager for several decades, he had already voiced too many opinions on this matter, so he stopped his mouth and didn't say anything. The Empress Dowager was slightly stunned. Her face, like a chrysanthemum petals, like heavy wrinkles gradually spread out, said, "State affairs Your Majesty tube, family affairs I tube, then this matter I don't care." The man fawned and said, Empress Dowager is saintly. This matter you did not do wisely. Sinan Bo Fan Jian looked coldly at his son in his study. Fan Xian smiled bitterly. During the daytime, he knew that he must not be able to escape this round of chastisement, and didn't make much of an explanation, but just honestly admitted his mistake. You're not a stupid person. Guobaoquan doesn't have any powerful figures around him. If you really wanted to beat him up to take out your anger, why would you reveal so many horse feathers? Without waiting for Fan Xian to explain, Sinan Bo added coldly, don't say anything about how beating someone without registering it is the same as not getting out of breath nonsense. Fan Xian knew that it was Lu who had relayed to his father what he had said during the day, and smiled somewhat embarrassedly. Seeing the clean, unmistakable smile on his face, Fan Jian became angry no matter what, and said with a sigh, tell me, what was the point of making such a scene? Fan Xian thought for a moment and replied, for one thing, I had a drink with Prince Jing last night and thought that this friend was a good one to make, so I took advantage of the fight to tie him to myself, so that in the future, with the King Jing's house as a backer behind him, no matter what I do, it'll always be easier to do. After saying this sentence, he secretly glanced at his father's eyes, found that there is no abnormality, before continuing, secondly, Guobaoquan, this guy is too bullying, I have to let him know that I cannot be messed with. Fan Jian sneered and said, this second reason makes sense, but I think the most important reason is that you resisted that Tsubaki marriage from the bottom of your heart, so you wanted to defeat your own reputation so that the palace would kick you out. Fan Xian did not expect to hide it from his father at all, and was slightly stunned, pondering how to explain. Fan Jian said coldly again, and when I said you weren't smart earlier, it was because you dragged King Jing into the water. You should know that the Guo family is from the Crown Prince's faction, but Prince Jing is from the Second Prince's faction, so if you beat up Guobaoquan and drag Prince Jing down, won't it be said in other people's eyes that our Fan family has already defected to the Second Prince? Fan Xian pretended to be surprised and said, the whole country of Qing knows that my father is friends with the king of Jing County, and my sister is also friends with the county lord of Rugia, and the closeness of the relationship between the two families can even be said to be an anomaly on the official scene. Could it be that you are? Don't forget, your grandmother was His Majesty's nursemaid back then. This Jing County king was also brought up by her. At that time, His Majesty was busy with other things, so it was all brought up by me to play. The two families' relationship is naturally extremely good. Fan Jian hummed and said, but personal friendship is personal friendship, official business is official business, and state affairs are state affairs. This matter in the palace, is it not something we can discuss as courtiers? The Crown Prince is still the Crown Prince today, the Crown Prince of a country, and if His Majesty lives 10,000 years from now, of course our Fan family will be loyal to the Crown Prince. Fan Xian heard the sickness in these words and said with a smile, what if the Crown Prince is not the Crown Prince? Strangely enough, hearing his son say such treacherous words, Sananbo Fan Jian was not the least bit surprised, nor did he lecture him, but only said faintly, this is something only His Majesty can decide, and any camp that takes sides before His Majesty decides is the wrong thing to do. Child understands. Fan Xian finally got the one result he wanted after beating up Guobaoquan. The Fan family doesn't side with the Crown Prince, nor does it side with the Second Prince, it just stands on the side of His Majesty. Not bad. Fan Jian said in a cold voice, if you don't want to stand on the wrong side, don't rush to grab a stand, and as long as you always stand on the side of the strongest, you'll never make a mistake, and in this entire world, the strongest is naturally His Majesty. What if His Majesty dies? Fan Xian looked at his father wistfully, knowing that he was indeed loyal to that emperor. His Majesty is in the prime of his spring and is even younger than I am. Fan Jian smiled, the future is the future, it's for your generation. Do you know how many times we and the Guo family have secretly exchanged hands in the court today in order for you to be able to walk down from the public court with ease? The Delizi, the Ministry of Justice, the Ministry of Appointments, the shadows of our two families can be seen everywhere. The Guo family even found their way to the supervisory court in the end, if not for Chen Pingping's absence. Maybe you really wouldn't have been able to come back today. Chen Pingping? Fan Xian frowned, really familiar with this name. Of course he knew that the other party was the person in charge of the shadowy forces of the entire country of Qing, but knowing full well the close relationship between the Fan family and the supervisory academy, so he was a bit puzzled. Why is it that I can't come back if Chen Pingping is there? Because he is against you marrying the eldest princess's daughter. Fan Jian coldly said, this time, the reason you were summoned to the capital in a hurry was because Chen Pingping had returned to her hometown to save her family and was unable to speak in front of His Majesty. And that's why you were told to go to the capital to hurry up and finalize this marriage, and it wasn't entirely because of that girl's condition. Fan Xian looked at his father and asked, Fei Jie is my teacher, and your relationship with President Chen has always been close. Why would he object? No, in the eyes of outsiders, there isn't too deep a connection between me and the supervisory academy. Fan Jian said indifferently. As for why he would oppose it, it's simple, because there are differences between him and I regarding our views on certain matters, so it would lead to completely different judgments. What views? Fan Xian stared into his father's eyes, not straying for an instant. Fan Jian frowned, and finally decided to tell the boy part of the truth. His Majesty doesn't like the crown prince, but the fact that the Empress is close to the eldest princess, and that the eldest princess is in charge of the silver coming in and out of the inner treasury, which is a secret account from which it's easy to take out the silver, makes His Majesty very uneasy. Fan Xian was shocked and said, so His Majesty is afraid of a change in the Eastern Palace?